Presumably everyone can see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, let's get started. So thanks everyone for joining. We really appreciate it. This is the SNG Thriving Communities Fund 2024 information webinar. And just a bit of housekeeping, please do stay on mute to avoid background noise. And we ask that you save your questions for the Q&A at the end. We will have time for questions. And so, then you can unmute yourselves and things like that. But just in the interest of the kind of webinar section, be grateful if you can mute yourselves. And for the Q&A, if you have a question that is specifically related to your project, we would be more than happy to answer it via the grants inbox or have a chat with you separately. But just in the interest of time in this webinar, we do ask that you keep your questions as general as possible, so it's relevant for everyone. I think that's it. So let's get started. Oh, and do post your questions in the chat. There is a Q&A function as well, but it's a little bit confusing to use. So I think we'll just go with the chat for now. And we also welcome you to put your name and your organisation in the chat as well, so people just know who else is on the call. And if you just want to introduce yourselves, then yeah, please do feel free to do so. And I should say, my name's Ros and I'm a grants officer at SNG. And I've got Amy, who's another grants officer, and Hannah, who's a funding and innovation manager, on the call as well. We will be introducing ourselves properly in just a second. Great. So just to start by giving you a little bit more context about Sovereign Network Group, who we are and what we do. We are a leading housing association, which essentially we're providing good and affordable homes. We are one of the largest housing associations in the UK. We have over 84,000 homes, predominantly across the south of England and more recently London. You can find out more about exactly where we operate on our website. And yeah, so if you're interested. And essentially the customer experience is at the heart of everything we do, and for us, investing positively in our community network is a key mechanism to improve the lives of our customers. So the key vision is to support thriving communities over generations. We have a large and diverse communities team at the organisation, and we are in the process of launching a new community foundation, which is very exciting. And this will really help us to invest meaningfully in our communities over the next few years. So I'm now just going to pass over to Amy, who's going to just give a little bit more context about our team and what we do within the organisation.
Cool. Thanks, Ros. Right, so I'm just going to give a bit of an introduction to me and the team. So as Ros said, I'm Amy. I'm a grants officer, and Ros is our other grants officer, and we're based within the partnerships and funding team. And we also have Hannah here, who manages us, and she's our funding and innovation manager. So our partnerships and funding team are responsible for securing external funding, distributing grants to charities and community groups, measuring our social value and impact, and supporting social enterprise. So mine and Ros's role within the team is around distributing the grants to charities and community groups. And one of the ways that we do that is through our Thriving Communities Fund. And this year we're going to be doing that via the Action Funder online platform, which we're going to tell you a bit more about in a bit. And Ros is going to tell you some more about our grants at SNG and then go into more detail about our Thriving Communities Fund. So back over to you, Ros.
Thanks, Amy. Yes, so at SNG, we really recognise the fundamental role that community and voluntary organisations play in delivering those key services to our communities. And that's really what we want to highlight with our community funding programme. Up until now, our grants have supported a variety of not-for-profit groups and other kind of community organisations that can clearly demonstrate how their services and projects help to deliver cohesive, sustainable, resilient communities, which in turn benefits our SNG customers. So just to give you a little bit of context, in 2023, over 55,000 people benefited from our grant funding across 110 projects that we supported, and we distributed £498,000 of grant funding. So this leads me on to this year's Thriving Communities Fund, which we're really, really excited to be launching. And it's essentially aimed at providing funding for projects that support thriving and resilient communities, and importantly, that benefit our SNG customers. So we're going to be offering grants of £1,000 up to £5,000. And we'll be accepting applications until December of this year. But depending on demand, this may be subject to change. For example, we may kind of keep the fund open longer. And if we do so, we'll notify groups in advance of these changes. But essentially, we'll be assessing applications on a rolling basis. We will offer one grant per organisation, and that's even if you have multiple projects in different locations. And this is really just to try and ensure that we're spreading the funding across as many different organisations as possible. And the other thing we ask is that your project should aim to be completed within 12 months of receiving funding. We're so excited to be working with Action Funder this year to deliver the fund. Action Funder is a digital engagement platform that connects funders with not-for-profits organisations, with the goal of supporting thriving communities and generally making the funding process easier and more impactful for both funders and community organisations. Perrine is here to give us a bit more detail about the platform and how to use it very shortly, so I won't go into too much detail. But essentially, we want to provide funding for activities that align with our key priority areas, which are very broad. I will go on to them in this slide. So our priority areas cover a lot of things, and your project may fall into many of these different categories. But essentially they are youth, so projects that maybe support young people to kind of steer initiatives, achieve aspirations, transition from where they are to where they want to be. Health and well-being, so this could be projects that help create communities where people can feel and live well. So this could be specialised mental health support or more about physical health, improving physical health through exercise or grassroots sports or other activities. Aging well, so these are projects that maybe could invest in the development of more inclusive or age-friendly communities. Social inclusion and isolation, so including equality, diversity and inclusion. So, projects that maybe promote equal opportunities, enhance participation, create a positive culture and sense of belonging. Environment and place, projects that kind of foster lasting place-based improvements in local communities, support local nature recovery, or maybe galvanise kind of community action on climate and nature. And then customer voice. So this is projects where customer voices can be heard and that empower kind of customer voices to be heard, and empower them to take influence, action, make a difference within their communities. This may be our own SNG customers or people who use your services and attend your events, or volunteers, that kind of thing. And then employment support, so projects that increase employment and training opportunities, maybe help in terms of accessing work or vocational qualifications. And then food insecurity, so these could be projects that provide access to food for those in kind of financial hardship or support grassroots food initiatives. Digital inclusion and skills, so projects that may be focusing on increasing access to digital skills, equipment, and connectivity, and overcoming those historical barriers. And then money matters and debt advice, so projects that are focusing on developing financial skills, increasing income, reducing debt for those in financial hardship. So this is a broad range of things. There are many of them. Your project may fall into many of these categories, as I said, but if you're unsure, then please do get in touch with us and we can help you to kind of to see where your project might fall. And I do just want to quickly note here, before I do pass on to Perrine from Action Funder, that we categorize our themes slightly differently on our platform than Action Funder categorize their themes slightly differently. Generally they align, and there is kind of it's much more a case of a different wording. But if you are unsure about how your theme fits in and where it fits in, then please just do get in touch with us and we're happy to answer any questions. And sorry, actually, Amy, you're next, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right, no worries. So who can apply? So To be eligible to apply, you need to be a local not-for-profit community organisation or a registered charity. Your project must match one of our priority themes, so those themes that Ros just went through. And the project needs to be running in one of our communities and aim to benefit our SNG customers. And I'll go through how to find that out in the next slide. And in terms of what we will fund, so we'll fund up to 10% towards core running costs and up to 25% on capital and equipment costs. As we said before, you can apply via Action Funder, and you can do that either by submitting a written pitch or a video submission, which we'll go into more detail about a bit later. And we've actually put together some more detailed application guidance, which you can take a look at on our webpage, which we will post in a bit. But that will include things like how to put together a strong project budget. And then if we just go on to the next slide, that looks a bit more at where our communities are. So this year we've split the fund up into 6 different regions. So you'll be able to apply to the specific region based on where your project is being delivered. So if you're on the Action Funder platform and you go onto our profile, you'll see the 6 different regions on there, and it should be clear which one that you are able to apply to. We've embedded this map onto our webpage, and we're hoping that's going to make it easier for you to look at our communities, zoom in to see where our homes are, and be able to work out for yourself whether your project is based within an SNG community. And we're hoping that for you to be able to access this information, it will support your application. But if you get to that point and you look at the map and you're not sure, please do feel free to get into contact with us. Hannah's popped the link in the chat to the webpage, so feel free to take a little look now or save it for later and have a little look later. We've also split the regions up between myself and Ros. So I'm going to be looking after regions 2 and 3, and Ros will look after regions 1, 4, 5 and 6. And in terms of the fund amount, we've split that up across the 6 different regions, and the amount of funds in each region is based on the number of stocks that we have in each. So that is our information about our SNG communities. And next, we are really pleased to have Perrine from Action Funder here. So she's going to talk about...
Oh, Amy's internet, I think, has just dropped out. But I hope that, yes, Perrine, take it away. Thank you.
I was really hoping that wasn't my internet that actually just dropped off as I was supposed to talk. Hi everyone, I'm Perrine. I'm a community manager for Action Funder, and we're really thrilled to be working with SNG to deliver their grant program this year. So I'm just going to give you a bit of an intro to the platform, and we're just going to look together at how you can use it to apply to the Thriving Community Funds. So Action Funder is a fundraising platform for nonprofits in the UK that is focusing on grant funding. It's currently used by over 10,000 nonprofits, and they have had access to over £3 million funding since it launched over 3 years ago. So the platform is open to and free to all types of nonprofits with UK-based projects, so that's charities, community groups, schools, CIC, social enterprises, and more. Next slide, please, Rod. Thank you. So we have 2 types of people using Action Funder. We have businesses across the UK, such as SNG, but equally South West Water, construction companies, Sir Robert McAlpine, that want to fund community projects. And then we have nonprofits like yourselves who need funding and connections to deliver their work. And so Action Funder is really the bridge between the two. And as it was mentioned earlier, it was really created to simplify the grant funding process. As we all know, it can be quite long and time-consuming, and really open up access to funding from businesses to nonprofits for mutual benefits. Next slide, please. We're just going to get into how it works. And so businesses on Action Funder launch funding pots in the UK in location that they want to support with different focus area, as we've just seen with SNG. And then nonprofits sign up for free. They add in the basic information for their organization, so location, focus area, type of organization. And based on this, the platform presents them with relevant funds, and you get notified every time a fund launches that's relevant for your organization. So as you sign up and you put your postcode in, you should see the Thriving Community Funds appear in your dashboard. And then to apply, you just create a project on the platform. It's important to note that it's a matchmaking platform. So if your project fits several funds, your project will be submitted to several funds at once. So you don't have to replicate your applications all the time. I'm just going to dive into the detail of applying now. If I could go to the next slide. So Action Funder is a digital platform. So this is what your your dashboard would look like. You will have on your left-hand side the funds that you can apply to, on your right-hand side your projects, and then your help center at the bottom right and left with plenty of article and Q&A. If we look at this dashboard, for example, we can see that there's 3 funding opportunities that fit my organization. So I'm going to go ahead, read the funds page, check the criteria, and then apply. Next slide, please. So just looking at one of SNG's funds here, you can see on the page, every fund has the same kind of layout, so you can spot the information straight away. So you see number 1 is the amount that you can apply for. So as it was mentioned earlier, that's between £1,000 and £5,000. Number 2 is the fund description, so any key information from the funder. Number 3 is your deadline to apply. Number 4 is the location. So for this fund, your projects will have to be in the blue map that was beautifully drawn by Ross, I believe. And number 5 is the focus areas. So these are the focus areas that we talked about earlier. They're slightly different than SNGs, but match. And then next slide, please. To apply back on your dashboard, you just have to click on the top right button that says create a project. And a project can be funding to run our food bank for 6 months, purchasing craft material, etc., etc. You just want to make sure that for a specific fund, your project is in the right location, it has at least a focus area in common with the fund for it to be submitted, and that the amount that you request is within the fund's limits. So just looking at the steps to apply now, Roz, if you can go to the next slide. So there's 3 steps to creating a project. That's step number 1, that's your key information, so your project name, the funding you required, your focus area, etc. Next slide. Number 2 is your pitch, so that's your time to shine, where you answer 3 questions using a very simple framework that is going to highlight the need. So the problem, what problem is your project solving? The solution is what you are doing in response to this need, and then why you are best placed to deliver this project is the expertise within the organization that will make this project a success. And as it was mentioned, you can do this either in written or in video form, and I'll just come back to this in a minute. Just moving on to step 3, which is the delivery plan. So that's your budget breakdown, information on expected impact, who your beneficiaries are, etc., etc. At the end of those 3 steps, you can hit publish, and your project will be submitted to the relevant funds, and you will be notified by email as soon as it does. And then all you have to do is wait to hear back from SNG through Action Funder. You can also save your progress as you go. You just have to fill in the page and then go to the next step. Once funded as well, your impact reporting will be done directly on the platform too, once you have reached the end of your project, and you will have to provide 2 updates as your project is ongoing, but don't worry about this. We have reminder emails in place that will just nudge you at the key stages. And then just finishing on the video pitch quickly. On the next slide, perfect. So as I mentioned, you can do either written pitch or video pitch. The video pitch is the same content as the written pitch, but in 90 seconds. They're quite well liked by funders on the platform because they're really engaging, they're memorable, they stand out from the crowd. For some people, it's a good way to express their passion about the project as well. If your writing isn't your main channel, then you can try a video. And they really don't have to be Hollywood-style production. They are about the quality of your project. So all you need is a device to film yourself with a decent quality. You need a script just to make sure that you actually cover all the points of your pitch, and then a YouTube account to upload your video. But there are 3, easy to create, and we have step-by-step guides for these as well. I'm not sure, do we have time to watch the video, Rose, by any chance, or do you want to send it later?
No, it's okay. I just need to share a different screen.
Let's see if
Hopefully
this works.
it'll be seamless.
It never is when I do it, so I hope
I
you're better
know.
than me. So this is just an
Uh,
example of a pitch that was funded through the platform, just so you can have a bit of an overview of what a video pitch actually entails. Thank you.
okay, let's give it a go. If someone shout if it's not working.
I think you have to stay unmuted, Ross, because the sound's coming from
Okay.
your...
Oh, oh.
There's no sound.
Oh no, can't hear her.
Right, I might just post this in the chat, and then people can watch it
Yeah,
afterwards.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Good shout.
Great, that's it for Action Funder. We're staying around if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Corinne. That was really helpful. So next, we're really pleased to have Becky from Coexist Community Kitchen here. We supported Coexist Community Kitchen through our Thriving Communities Fund last year. And Becky is going to tell you a bit more about her experience with this. So it's over to you, Becky.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for having me today. So yeah, we ran a crowdfunder last winter. So we do this every year. It's our big opportunity to do some fundraising to raise money for our project in Easton in Bristol. We're a non-profit cookery school, and we use food as a vehicle to connect with people and support people who are marginalised in our society. So we are plugged in with all of the social services across Bristol, as well as other non-profits and other charities, to make sure that we're reaching the people who need our support most. Now, our crowdfunder, as part of that, there was an extra funding area which put us in touch with SNG, and it was through that we were able to get £10,000 towards our project for this coming year. So we are now well into the delivery of some of that stuff, and some of the things that we've been able to action are supporting our community meal service. So we have about sort of half funded for the whole year our community meal service, which originally started as a sort of emergency kitchen that we created during COVID. But after that, we saw the need for this continue. There is growing need for obviously food insecurity across Bristol and the whole country, and so people really were relying on these nutritious meals that we are creating. So now, with the support of SNG funding, we have been able to continue that programme. So every Wednesday we have about 6 to 8 volunteers come and help us cook up around 180 meals that then get picked up by people in the community. We are supporting about 10 individuals and 20 families at the moment with those meals. And it's really important for us to make sure that they're getting, really nutritious food. So it's a mix of, your sort of staples of nice comfort food, so sort of shepherd's pie and pasta dishes and things like that, but filled with lots of fresh vegetables, and making sure that everyone's getting their sort of 5 a day. In addition to this, we've been able to buy lots of bus tickets. So what we find, one of our sort of barriers of getting people that need our support but can't necessarily get to the kitchen because they live on the outskirts of Bristol. They, for example, have asylum seekers or refugees who are placed in hotels that are quite far away and they don't have access to cars. So we've been able to buy bus tickets that we can then get vouchers, and we provide these for people who are benefiting from our services. So that's been really, really great, and we're getting some great feedback. We've also managed to develop a new course which has been specifically aimed at supporting older people, so people who are sort of feeling isolated and alone. We're now running 6 courses that get people together, sharing interests in food and recipes and things like that. The really simple thing of getting people around a table as well, actually sitting down and talking, sharing stories. Just sometimes for people being asked how they are or how their day's been, how their week's been. It's a really nice opportunity to connect socially. We've also been offering free cooking class places for our public cooking classes. So we are set up as a not-for-profit organisation, a CIC, and that means that we try and generate as much of our own funding as we can. Obviously, we do rely on grants and fundraising as well. But wherever possible, we try and generate our own funds. And one of the ways we do that is through cooking classes that are available to the public. And for £55, people can come for a sort of 3-hour immersive cooking session and learn a new cuisine or a new technique. And through the fund, we've been able to actually offer these, a place to somebody who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to come to something like that. Which again has just given, we're getting really great feedback from the people who have been able to join those sessions, or they might have been able to join one of the events that we put on, which are similar. It's always related to, food and sharing skills. And that is a really nice way for us as an organisation to make sure that there isn't that sort of financial barrier for people when they're trying to engage with us. Obviously, all of our community outreach stuff is free at point of access for the people that we work with, but it's really important for us to make sure that everything is available to everyone in some format. We've also teamed up with the Centre for Deaf and Hard of Hearing in Bristol, and we've been working with them to run cooking sessions for deaf people. Again, a really great way of connecting, because food is something that we all have to eat, and we all have our favourites and our, the things that make us happy or make us feel comfortable or comforted. And we've been getting really lovely feedback from the organisation and the participants who have been joining those sessions as well. So yeah, generally we've been able to really improve the sort of equity of access, making sure that people feel included. And we obviously have been working with Amy and Ros to feedback as well, to show the impact that we've been having. Part of the work that we've been doing is to make sure that we're recording all of that information so that we can, show the benefits, and we've done that in multiple ways. For example, we created a survey on our MailChimp, which we now sort of regularly share with people. For example, the ones who are accessing our community meal service, we now send a survey out to make sure that they are getting enough food, that they like the flavours and the types of recipes that we're putting out there. Just constantly asking for feedback to make sure that we can keep improving. We also have been doing some more in-depth case studies so that we can get a bit more sort of like richer content. So we've sat down and done sort of longer interviews with people who have benefited from the service, and that's been really useful with our sort of quarterly reporting that we do with an SNG. We are able to give them sort of quotes from people or little case studies, which all help demonstrate the impact that we're having. And we also worked with a volunteer videographer who helped us put together a video as well, which just really explains our sort of approach with our community meal service and with some of our other cooking programs that we run. If any of you are interested in seeing any of that content, we have a YouTube channel, Coexist Community Kitchen. If you search that, I'll pop it in the chat as well. You can have a look at the kind of stuff that we are up to. And yeah, I guess Q&A. Do you want to hold questions until the end, or do you want to open it out to anyone asking more specific questions?
Yeah, maybe Becky, if you are able to stay for the Q&A at the end, and then if there are any questions for Becky, we can direct them then. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to be here, and really great to hear about the upcoming fund and that you're working with Action Fund. I will be signing up for an account very soon.
Thanks so much, Becky. Yeah, we're so grateful that you could join us and tell us a bit more about your amazing project. It's just such a great example of what we want to achieve with this funding. So yeah, great. So I am now going to just talk a little bit about our selection process, so you kind of know what to expect when you are applying. So as Karine mentioned, when you apply on Action Funder, you will go through a kind of matching process where you'll be matched with different funds. So if your project meets our key criteria, then you will match with our fund on Action Funder. And we will carry out an initial sifting process, so we determine which projects will move forward to a shortlist. This will be based mainly on questions of eligibility. So kind of, does your project operate in an area where we have SNG homes, for example? Is your budget suitable? Does it include costs that we have like earmarked as eligible? Do the core objectives of the project align with our priority areas? And we will do our best to process and do the sifting as quickly as possible. But we are expecting a high number of applications, so do kind of bear with us. As mentioned, we will assess shortlisted projects on a rolling basis at a panel, and this panel will be made up of a team of colleagues with specialists and kind of varied skills and knowledge, and we will review and score all projects based on the same assessment criteria. SNG staff will also all be able to vote on which projects they think should be funded, and the results of that vote will be combined with kind of scores at panel to guide our decision-making processes to make it as transparent as possible. We aim to provide feedback to all shortlisted applicants who are unsuccessful at panel, but unfortunately we can't provide feedback to those who aren't shortlisted, and this is just due to the kind of high number of matches that we expect to receive. We may provide feedback urging you to kind of reapply with changes to your project, and we will really hope to work with you as closely as possible to kind of through that process. But please do read the application guidance that we've mentioned in full before applying, and you can access that via the fund webpage, which I think Hannah has already put in the chat, but we'll post again and make sure you have. If you are unsure about anything, then do reach out. I'm just going to briefly on the next slide run through a few kind of top tips for successful applications and a few common mistakes that we see that to try and avoid. So obviously it may seem obvious, but we won't consider projects that don't meet our eligibility criteria. So please kind of carefully consider if you are eligible before submitting application. We really don't want to waste your time. So if you are unsure, particularly around the geographical location, because we know this can be a little bit confusing, then please don't hesitate to contact us via the grants inbox. We're always open. We will respond within 5 days of receiving emails. So yeah, please do reach out to us. And the map that is embedded in the fund webpage is also an extremely useful tool for establishing whether your project is in an SNG area and will be kind of eligible in that geographical sense. The next tip is to pay really close attention to your budget. This is a key reason why applications are rejected, due to kind of unrealistic or unclear budgeting. So information on what we will and won't fund is included in the application guidance. Generally, we'll aim to be kind of as flexible as possible, provided that costs are kind of proportionate and relevant to the work that you're doing, but we will fund overheads and core running costs only up to 10% of your total budget, and for capital and equipment costs up to 25% of your total budget. So it's also good practice to get quotes for all the items included in your budget and kind of plan for the entire lifetime, like the timeline of your project. The more detail, the better, obviously, in a budget, but we also do understand that things may change over the course of your project, and we will work closely with you to kind of resolve any issues that do arise. So, for us, communication is the most important thing. We really want to help you to achieve really good things with the work with the grant funding. So in terms of the next one, so being clear and concise in your language is really important. So firstly, consider whether a written or video pitch is best for your organisation. I did see a question in the chat, I'm jumping the gun here, but about whether you can do part written and part video pitch. And so there's kind of 2 key sections of the application. The first is the pitch, and then it's kind of the delivery breakdown. So you will all have to kind of put a budget and kind of other things in your delivery breakdown. But it's the pitch where you can choose whether to do a video or a written application. So you're either answering 3 core questions or you're doing a pitch. So even if you chose to do a pitch, you would still have to do a little bit of written application. But hopefully it shouldn't be too onerous on you. And if you are submitting a written pitch, just keep your writing as concise as possible. Stick to the key details of your organisation. I always think it's useful to think about it. If someone else who didn't know what you did was reading your application, after reading it, would they be able to summarise your project and what you're trying to achieve? And if they aren't, then it's probably a sign that you've included slightly too much information in there. Another thing, Becky helpfully mentioned this as well, but around kind of how you will measure your impact. So we will expect you to stay in touch with us about how your project is going. As Perrine said, there'll be a few points where you'll have to give updates, and we will also ask for some key data at the end of your project. So this will be focused on your beneficiaries and your tangible kind of outputs, but we also encourage impact stories and we'll ask for some sort of specialised information that aligns with the key themes that you're choosing to address. So incorporating impact measurement into your project model will just save you a lot of time and difficulty later on, and will really help you to be able to record impact and kind of help to tell that story of the work that you're doing. So if you are kind of unsure about any of these elements, then please do reach out to us and we'll be happy to help. Consider the sustainability of your project. This is a really important one as well. We want to ensure that our funding has, you know, a long-lasting impact, and so we recommend trying to embed sustainability into the kind of application. So for an environment and place project, for example, this might be looking at like incorporating maintenance costs into your project budget. For something else, for like an employment project, it might be around kind of ensuring that there are qualifications involved, so that that person can then go on and use that as a springboard for, you know, their long-term objectives. And then finally, evidencing need and linking to SNG communities. This is probably one of the hardest things to be able to achieve in an application, but obviously for us, one of the key objectives of this grant is around supporting SNG communities, and we really want to know how the grant is going to make a positive difference to that community. So in order to do that, it's important to showcase why those activities are needed in the first place. So using things like statistics, quotes, and kind of testimonies about the work that you've done previously can be really helpful for this. You could take figures, for example, through kind of local surveys, government reports, or through kind of previous beneficiaries of your work to really help showcase why the project's needed and why you're best placed to deliver it. So if you're unsure, please, again, do read the application guidance, but and again, reach out to us if you have any specific questions about your application. Would be happy to answer them. And also, you know, we can pass on any queries to your Action Funder colleagues if you have any questions about the platform itself, if things aren't working for you tech-wise, or if you're unsure about where to put certain things, then we will pass on those queries as well. So finally, Amy is just going to give us a little bit of an overview about what support you can expect from us and what we expect from you, and then we will move on to our Q&A.
Thanks, Roz. Okay, so what support can groups applying to the fund expect? So this year we've really tried to build on how we are supporting groups to apply to our fund, and working with Action Funder means we have a lot more capacity to be able to do that, which is really great news. So we're happy to support with applications and registration onto the Action Funder platform. We are aware that Action Funder will be the experts in the Action Funder platform. So if there is something that we can't help with, then we're more than happy to signpost you to the right person in Action Funder to help. And then if you'd like to chat through your application or your project, or if you aren't sure if you're meeting the eligibility criteria, or you're just not quite sure about whether you are working in an SNG community and you can't work it out from the map on the webpage, then feel free to contact us. Our email address is grants@sng.org.uk. And if it's something that you want to chat through, we're more than happy to set up a Teams meeting and have a chat and see if we can support that way. And then we are aiming to provide feedback to all unsuccessful shortlisted projects. And as Rod said, you can re-review your application and reapply if you wish. I think Roz did mention that it is only the shortlisted unsuccessful applications that we'll be providing feedback for. We won't be able to provide feedback for all matches and projects that apply but then aren't shortlisted, just because of the sheer number of matches that we've had already. We don't have the capacity to be able to do that, unfortunately. Our grants officers, so me and Roz, will contact groups who receive funding, will be the main point of contact throughout the duration of the project. And we're really hoping to go out and visit projects, support with monitoring evaluation, and explore opportunities for future partnership working. And we also hope to be able to refer to other support services within SNG where appropriate. So, for example, we've got a team of fundraising specialists that support groups with fundraising. So if we think that a group would benefit from that, then we are more than happy to refer over. And now on the next slide, we've got what will we expect from you. So we'll need your project information uploaded onto Action Funder, and that will obviously allow us to review your project and your application to the fund, and then hopefully we can shortlist it to be reviewed at our grants panel. Good communication. So we really love to hear about the project. We'd love to hear updates about the project, how it's going, but also if you're encountering any problems or you need any further support from us, then we would love to hear from you. We will be able to update you on information on any new funds. So sometimes we have some microgrant funds running alongside our main fund, and we'll aim to get this information out to you. And we also like to let our grantees know about how they can refer our customers back into SNG for support. So we've got a number of support services for our customers. So we'll be able to let you know how you can signpost them to us that way. And then onto reporting, which Ros has obviously mentioned. So it's really important that you're able to meet our reporting requirements, which will be the end of project report that Ros touched on. So you'll be notified about that through Action Funder. And obviously we really love hearing about the projects and the difference that you're making in our communities, but we also have requirements to report to our board about how our funding is being distributed, the impact that it's having and the social value that it's generating. And that then allows us to invest in local communities each year. So it's really important to us and also important to our communities. So that's why we ask about that. And then another thing that we just wanted to point out is that when you upload your end of project report, your updates and your photos, that then gives us consent to use these as part of things like press releases and social media updates. You will be notified that when you sign up to Action Funder and you apply, but we just wanted to really point it out to you just to make sure that you're aware. And then I think that brings us on to our final slide. So on here, we've got our email address to the grants team. So feel free to get in touch if you've got any questions, and any specific questions about your project, feel free to email there. We won't be able to answer any questions about specific projects that have been put in the chat, but if you email this email address, then we can chat about it more there. We've got our webpage here, the SNG Thriving Communities webpage, which Hannah has posted in the chat, and then our Action Funder profile page is also on there, so you can take a little look. And then we very kindly nominated our manager Hannah to check through the questions for us. So I think she's been keeping a little eye on the chat, but yeah, it's been pinging the entire time. So I feel like we've got quite a lot of questions.
We do. We have quite a few. So hi everyone, I'm Hannah. Really nice to see you all. Some familiar names and faces, and some people I've never met before. So thank you so much for coming along, and thank you Ros, Amy, Becky, Perrine. Thank you so much for your time today presenting the webinar. So we've got quite a few questions. We've covered off a couple. There was one question around people struggling to see the map. So I have popped the link back into the web page and also a direct link to the map. If people are still struggling, please let us know. I do find sometimes it just takes a few seconds to load, but if you have any problems, let us know. So first question is from Emily Abbott. So she's asked, can I check what happens if you are a national organisation working in hyperlocal areas? The registered postcode does not alert any eligible funding. How do we select the area? So have I got any takers on answering that one? That might be Perrine.
I think perhaps. It might be, yeah.
If Perrine is still there.
Oh God, am I unmuted?
No, yeah,
we can hear you, yeah.
So it's just me trying to, struggle with my laptop. For national charities, you can put your postcode on Action Funder. So as you register your profile, you won't be notified of all the funds launching that are not where your postcode is. So you can either put your registered address, or if you're quite keen to hear about a specific area of the UK and you deliver a project in there, just put an address for your project for your profile. but each project will have a different address as well. So for each project, you'll be able to have a different location that can match with different funds. And if you're expecting to see a fund on your platform that's not popping up, feel free to drop us a message and then we'll take a look for you as well. But it's a little bit, it's not as straightforward for national organization with projects in every places.
Great, thanks, Perrine. And yeah, Emily, if you've got any questions or problems with that, please do reach out. We're more than happy to help. Next question is, if you have different projects in different areas, are you able to add more than one project for different areas? So absolutely, you can add more than one project onto your profile, but just to note, as we said earlier, we will only be able to award one grant per organisation through this fund this year, just in terms of the sheer kind of volume that we're expecting and wanting to kind of spread our funding across as many organisations as possible. So absolutely, and those projects could match with other funds. So that's one thing we'd say is, obviously we've got our fund on Action Funder, but there are loads of other funds available. So please do, if you've got other projects, hopefully through this webinar, it's kind of opening up the world of Action Funder to you guys, and you'll be able to kind of access other funds as well. So please do that. We've got the next question is from Jackie. So do you cover the whole of Wiltshire, which is region 4? I'm happy to answer that. And Amy, yeah.
Yeah, so we have homes across the whole of Wiltshire. However, if you look on the map, you can see that our homes will be specific to a village or a town. So we would just ask that if you're applying, you really look at whether your project is being delivered in one of those areas that we have homes, because there are areas in Wiltshire where we won't have homes. But if you take a look on the map and you want to chat it through, then feel free to do that, and I can go through it with you. If you want to just pop an email over, then I'm more than happy to take a look for you.
Great, thanks, Amy. This next question is from Kate. So if you represent more than one charity, should it be a separate application to Action Funder for each one? Will I need different emails for each charity? Also, does it matter what your organisation's income is to be eligible to apply? So I'm happy to answer that one. So if you are applying for different charities, and you will need to set up a profile per charity, and then you can kind of create your projects from there. So yes, you will need different emails for sort of each charity. Does it matter what your organisation's income is? No, so we haven't set any kind of limits on that. So we work with a range of kind of groups, really, really tiny grassroots to kind of some larger organisations. So no, we haven't set any limit on that this year. Beth has asked, can you submit more than one project on Action Funder in order to be matched with different funds? So I think we've covered that one off already. So you can submit more than one project. Obviously, we are only able to fund one organisation once during the year, but you can match with other funds. So please do, if you've got multiple projects, put them on there. Debbie asked about combination of video and written for your pitch. So Ros, I think you covered that one off, didn't you? But if you've got any other questions, Debbie.
Yeah,
sorry,
there
Ros.
was one. There was just one question related, I think, that was about whether we have any preference on video or written. There is absolutely no preference. You know, the option is there to kind of give you another option to talk about your project. You might, you might feel more comfortable doing a written pitch rather than a video pitch, or vice versa, and it's absolutely your choice, and they will be assessed. Yeah, there'll be no difference in the way that they're assessed in terms of the criteria. So
Great, thanks, Ros. And then we've got a question from Marie around, how do we find out if some SNG customers are our target client beneficiaries of our project, and how do we connect with them? Amy, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, sure. So I think for us, when we're looking at whether the project is going to benefit our SNG customers, I think for us it's kind of enough if it's really based within the heart of one of our communities. So we would assume that it's reasonable to assume that some of our customers would attend the project or take part in the project or be a beneficiary. In terms of getting in touch with our customers, so we won't be able to pass on customer details. However, we can put you in touch with a community investment and partnership lead who will know the area very well. So they cover the local areas, and they will be able to let you know maybe the best way to promote your project, so that our customers will be able to see that. So it might be flyers in the local GP surgery or posters, or they might be able to take that information to a locality meeting, to speak with our locality officer who are working directly with our customers, and then they will then be aware of that project and they can pass that on to the customers that they are working with. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Do you think there's anything else, Hannah?
I don't think so. And I think for me in the application, one thing we'd really like to see is kind of you considering how you would sort of promote that project so that it would be sort of accessible for SNG communities. So I think that's something we'd really just like you to think about in terms of how do you promote your project at the moment, you know, and what you could potentially do to kind of target people that are living in that area that are SNG customers. So that's one thing I'd really kind of suggest you consider. Great, thanks, Amy. So the next question, I think, is from Anna. So please can I ask, if a charity applies to the Thriving Communities Fund, will this preclude them from applying to the new SNG Foundation, which is launching later in the year? So obviously we are launching our new community foundation later this year. We've got no fixed date. There won't be a separate fund that launches through the foundation this year. So we will be working with Action Funder. Thriving Communities Fund is our main grant fund this year. As Amy mentioned, we may have a couple of smaller micro grant pots throughout the year based on very specific themes, but we're not anticipating another grant fund that will be launching like this later on in the year. So please do apply now, because there may not be another opportunity later in the year. And obviously we'll be kind of reviewing very early days in terms of creating the foundation. So we're kind of getting lots of feedback from community groups and sort of setting our objectives and registering with charity commission. So yeah, it could be a little while. So please do, yeah, apply on Action Funder. There was a question from Hannah about already having a project on Action Funder has automatically applied for SNG, but we would prefer to put forward a different project. Perrine, I think you answered that one, didn't you, in terms of that people can reject. You can reject the fund.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
if you need help, you can email Action Funder. So I think that one's covered off. That's great. If you're unsuccessful, can you reapply for a different project? Yes, you can. We will also, like we said, if your application is shortlisted, we will give feedback to kind of enable you to reapply. How do we find out more about SNG communities? I think we've covered that one off quite a lot in terms of the map and the information on our website. But obviously, if you have got any specific questions about our communities, please do kind of reach out to the grants email box, and Amy and Ros will be more than happy to help with that. Elizabeth, hi, can the applications via Action Funder be seen just by SNG, or are they public? Perrine, are they public?
Yeah, they are. Each project will have a public page that can be shared. So obviously it can be submitted to other funds on the platform, but there's also a URL that you can just share. So do make sure that the information you provide can be seen publicly, but there are reminders for this as well as you put your pitch along.
Great, thanks, Perrine. Another one for you. Can files be uploaded into the Action Funder application?
Sorry, I'm still struggling to unmute. Could you repeat the question, Hannah? I missed that.
Yeah, no worries. Can files be uploaded with the application? So kind of like other documents or supporting information?
No. Yeah, no. Thank you. No, at the moment, it's just your application solely.
Lovely, thank you.
There's another one for Perrine as well, which is there a limit to the kind of size or length of the video, the pitch?
Yes, so the video is 90 seconds, and then actually there is a limit on the amount of characters in your written pitch as well. There is a character count as you type, so you will have a clear overview of what you can put in as well, which is around 700 characters and 1,000 characters for some of the questions. So 90 seconds and a few hundreds.
Great, thanks, Perrine. Yes, someone's asked about recording of this webinar. Absolutely, we will make sure that you've got a recording of it. if Becky has asked, if you've been successful with funding before, are you able to apply to this fund, or do you have to wait a certain amount of time? So no, you don't have to wait a certain amount of time. We can fund, obviously, groups that we funded before. Obviously, it's a competitive process, so obviously we would say that the main thing is kind of making sure that you meet our criteria, and obviously we wouldn't be able to fund something that we were already kind of already funding, but obviously if it's a continuation of a project or a new project, then we're happy to consider those applications as well. And when will the SNG Foundation launch? Is there a confirmed launch date? No, 2024 is the hope. Obviously we've been doing a lot of consultation, and we're also Charity Commission give us a very loose timeline, so we hope to launch in 2024, but like I said, we don't anticipate there being any other kind of main funds that come out of the foundation this year, so please do apply under this Thriving Communities Fund if you are interested in funding with SNG. If a project has already been funded by another grant but more is needed, can we apply to raise the remaining funds needed for the project? Yep. Main thing is kind of really evidencing sort of need, and why you would need that kind of additional funding, and then what that would deliver. So that's absolutely fine, just you need to make that clear in your application. If you're unsuccessful, how long do you have to wait before reapplying? You can reapply straight away. Obviously just consider any feedback that we've given. Obviously if you're kind of not eligible for some of the costs in your budget or things like that, please do kind of just reconsider your application, because we wouldn't obviously be able to if kind of nothing changed in your application, then obviously we wouldn't be able to kind of reconsider it. Sorry, I'm talking very quickly, but I'm mindful we've got a minute left. I thought I was nearly done, but I keep scrolling and there's more and more.
I think if we can't fit in all the questions, we can always send
them through. I think we've just got a couple more. Does it have to be a brand new project, or can it be an expansion or a sustained element? Yeah, it can be all of those. We're happy to consider varied projects. We can fund school PTAs, so obviously you need to kind of fit the eligibility criteria of kind of the constitution of your group, but obviously we can have a chat with people if you're not clear about that. And I think
there's one about match funding and other sources of funding.
Okay. So if you have secured other match funding for your project, that's great. If you can just kind of let us know in your pitch, that's really helpful for us to know, but they don't have to be match funded. That's not kind of part of our eligibility criteria. How long after submitting an application can you expect to find out? So we're going to try and do it as quickly as possible. I think the most we'd want to do is kind of 6 to 8 weeks, but I just want to kind of caveat that we have had a lot of matches, and we obviously want to ensure that we're kind of reviewing applications properly. So please do bear with us. If you want to find out more, please do get in touch. But obviously, Ros and Amy, it's only 2 people, and we want to kind of make sure that we've got enough time to review them and obviously have really robust kind of panel processes. So just please do bear that in mind. We will kind of review your application as quickly as possible. I think any questions specifically about the map and location, I'm going to skip, and then please do get in touch with us, because obviously that's kind of specific for your group. Thank you. Good feedback on Action Funder. Very user friendly and time efficient. We're really pleased to be working with them. We hope it's going to be a much better, easier process for everyone. And I think that's pretty much everything. And I'm mindful that it's 3:01 and we need to crack on. So I'll hand over to Amy and Ros just to close the webinar.
Amazing. Thank you everyone so much for coming. Thank you so much for your time. We will save the recording and we hope to send it around with the presentation. The recording will also be available on our webpage, so we're going to aim to upload that with support of our comms team, so you can go back and take a look if there's anything that you need to catch up on. And yeah, please do feel free to check out our webpage, read our application guidance, and then get in touch if you've got any questions, and we're here to help.
Thanks everyone. Look forward to receiving your applications.
Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.